From Stocky and Company by Rudyard Kipling, in Ambush. In summer, all right-minded boys built huts in the furze hills behind the college, little lairs whittled out of the heart of the prickly bushes, full of stumps, odd root ends, and spikes, but, since they were strictly forbidden, palaces of delight. And, for the fifth summer in succession, Stocky, McTurk, and Beetle, this was before they reached the dignity of a study, had built, like beavers, a place of retreat and meditation where they smoked. Now there was nothing in their character, as known to Mr. Prout, their housemaster, at all commanding respect, nor did Foxy, the subtle red-haired school sergeant, trust them. His business was to wear tennis shoes, carry binoculars, and scoop hawk-like upon evil boys. Had he taken the field alone, that hut would have been raided, for Foxy knew the manners of his quarry. But Providence moved Mr. Prout, whose school name, derived from the size of his feet, was Hoofer, to investigate on his own account, and it was the cautious Stocky who found the track of his pugs on the very floor of their lair one peaceful afternoon, when Stocky would fain have forgotten Prout and his works in the volume of Surtees, and a new briar-wood pipe. Crusoe, at sight of the footprints, did not act more swiftly than Stocky. He removed the pipes, swept up all the loose match-ends, and departed to warn Beetle and McTurk. But it was the characteristic of the boy that he did not approach his allies till he'd met and conferred with little Hardtop, president of the Natural History Society, an institution which Stocky held in contempt. Hardtop was more than surprised when the boy meekly, as he knew how, begged to propose himself, Beetle, and McTurk as candidates, confessed to a long-smothered interest in the first flowerings, early butterflies, and new arrivals, and volunteered, if Mr. Hardtop saw fit, to enter on the new life at once. Being a master, Hardtop was suspicious, but he was also an enthusiast, and his gentle little soul had been galled by the chance-heard remark from the three, and specially Beetle. So he was gracious to that repentant sinner, and entered the three three names in his book. Then, and not till then, did Stocky seek Beetle and McTurk in their house-form room. They were stowing away books for a quiet afternoon in the furs, which they called the Wuzzy. "All up," said Stocky serenely. "I spotted heifers' fairy feet round our hut after dinner. Blessings, they're so big." "Confound! Did you hide our pipes?" said Beetle. "Oh, no. Left 'em in the middle of the hut, of course." "What a blind ass you are, Beetle. Do you think nobody thinks but yourself? Well, we can't use the hut any more. Hoofer will be watching it." "Bother likewise blow," said McTurk, thoughtfully unpacking the volumes with which his chest was cased. The boys carried their libraries between their belt and their collar. "Nice job. This means we're under suspicion for the rest of the term." "Why?" "All that Huffy found is a hut. He and Foxy will watch it. It's nothing to do with us, only we mustn't be seen that way for a bit." "Yes, and where else are we going to go?" said Beetle. "You choose the place, too, and I want to read this afternoon." Stocky sat on the desk drumming his heels on the form. "You're a desponding brute, Beetle. Sometimes I think I shall have to drop you altogether. Did you ever know your Uncle Stocky forget you yet? His rebus infectus. After I've seen Heffy's man-tracks marching round our hut, I found little Hardtop, destructo ens, waving a butterfly net. I conciliated Hardtop, told him that you'd read papers to the bug hunters if he'd let you join, Beetle. Told him you liked butterflies, Turkey. Anyhow, I soothed the Hartofuls, and we're bug hunters now." "What's the good of that?" said Beetle. "Oh, Turkey, kick 'em!" In the interests of science, bounds were largely relaxed for the members of the National History Society. They could wander, if they kept clear of all houses, practically where they chose, Mr. Hardtop holding himself responsible for their good conduct. Beetle began to see this as McTurk began the kicking. "I'm an ass, Stocky," he said, guarding the afflicted part. "Pax, Turkey, I'm an ass." "Don't stop, Turkey. Isn't your Uncle Stocky a great man?" "A Great man, said Beetle. All the same, bug hunting's a filthy business, said McTurk. How the deuce does one begin? This way, said Stocky, turning to some fag's locker behind him. Fags are dabs at not natural history. Here's young Braybook's botany case. He flung out a tangle of decayed roots and adjusted the slide. Gives one end no end of professional air, I think. Here's Clay Miner's geological hammer. Beetle can carry that. Turkey, you better convey a better butterfly net from somewhere. I'll be blowed if I do, said McTurk, simply, with immense feeling. Beetle, give me the hammer. All right, I'm not proud. Chuck us down that net on top of the lockers, Stocky. That's all right. It's just a collapsible. It's a collapsible jamboree too. Beastly luxurious dogs these fags are, built like a fishing rod. 'Pon my sainted Sam, but we look the complete bug hunters. Now listen to your Uncle Stocky. We're going along the cliffs after butterflies. Very few chaps come there. We're going to leg it, too. You better leave your books behind. Not much, said Beetle firmly. I'm not going to be done out of my fun for a lot of filthy butterflies. And then you'll sweat horrid. You better carry my jockers. 'Twon't make you any hotter. They all sweated, for Stocky led them at a smart trot west away along the cliffs under the furze hills, crossing comb after gorsy comb. They took no heed to flying rabbits or fluttering fiddleries, and all that Turkey said of geology was utterly unquotable. Are we going to Clovelly? He puffed at last, and they flung themselves down on the short, springy turf between the drones of the sea below and the late summer wind among the inland trees. They were looking into the combe half full of old high firs in gay bloom that ran up to the fringe of brambles and dense wood of mixed timber and hollies. It was as though one half of the combe were filled with golden fire to the cliff's edge. The side nearest to them was open grass and fairly bristled with the notice boards. Ferocious old cove this, said Stocky, reading the nearest. Prosecuted with the utmost rigor of the law, G.M. Dabney, Colonel J.P., and all the rest of them. It doesn't seem to me that any chap in his senses would trespass here, does it? You've got to prove damage before you can prosecute for anything. Can't prosecute for trespass, said McTurk, whose father held many acres in Ireland. That's all rot. Glad of that, 'cause this looks like what we wanted. Not straight across, Beetle, you blind lunatic. Anyone could stop us a half a mile off. This way and furl up your beastly butterfly net. Beetle disconnected the ring, thrust the net into a pocket, shut up the handle to a 2-foot stave, and slid the cane ring round his waist. Stocky led inland to the wood, which was, perhaps, a quarter of a mile from the sea, and reached the fringe of the brambles. Now we can get straight down through the firs, and never show up at all, said the tactician. Beetle, go ahead and explore. Sniff, sniff. Beastly stink of fox somewhere. On all fours, save for what he clung to his spectacles, Beetle wormed into the gorse, and presently announced between the grunts of pain that he had found a very fair fox track. This was well for Beetle, since Stocky had pinched him a terergo. Down the tunnel they crawled. It was evident a highway for the inhabitants of the combe, and, to their inexpressible joy, ended at the very edge of the cliff, a few square feet of dry turf walled and roofed with impenetrable gorse. By gum, this isn't a single thing to do. There isn't a single thing to do except lie down, said Stocky, returning a knife to his pocket. Look here. He parted the trough stems before him, and it was as a window opened on a fair view of Lundy and the deep sea sluggishly nosing through the pebbles a couple of 100 feet below. They could hear young jackdaws squawking on the ledges, the hiss and jabber of a nest of hawks somewhere out of sight, and, with great deliberation, Stocky spat on the back of a young rabbit sunning himself far down where only a cliff rabbit could have found foothold. Great grey and black gulls screamed against the jackdaws. The heavy scented acres of bloom round them were alive with low nesting birds, singing or silent as the shadow of the wheeling hawks passed and returned, and on the naked turf across the coombe rabbits thumped and frolicked. Whew! What a place! Talk of natural history. This is it, said Stlk, filling himself a pipe. Isn't it scrumptious? Good old sea! He spat again, approvingly, and was silent. McTurk and Beetle had taken out their books and were lying on their stomachs, chin in hand. The sea snorted and gurgled. The birds, scattered for the moment by these new animals, returned to their businesses, and the boys read on in the rich, warm, sleepy silence. "Hullo, here's the keeper," said Stlk, shutting Handy Cross cautiously and peeking through the jungle. A man with a gun appeared on the skyline to the east. "Confound him! He's going to sit down." "He'd swear we were poaching too," said Beetle. "What's the good of pheasants' eggs? They're always addled." "Might as well get up to the wood, I think," said Stlk. "We don't want G.M. Dabney Colonel J.P. to be bothered about us so soon. Up to the wuzzy and keep quiet. He may have followed us, you know." Beetle was already far up the tunnel. They heard him gasp indescribably. There was the crash of a heavy body leaping through the firs. "Aye, you little red rascal! I see you!" The keeper threw the gun to his shoulders and fired both barrels in their directions. The pellets dusted the dry stems round them as the big fox plunged between Stlk's legs and ran over the cliff edge. They said nothing till they reached the wood, torn, disheveled, hot, but unseen. "A narrow squeak," said Stlk. "I'll swear some of the pellets went through my hair." "Did you see him?" said Beetle. "I almost put my hand on him. Wasn't he a whopper? Didn't he stink? Hullo, Turkey, what's the matter? Are you hit?" McTurk's lean face had turned pearly white. His mouth, generally half open, was tight shut, and his eyes blazed. They'd never seen him like this save once in a sad time of civil war. "Do you know that was just as bad as murder?" he said in a grating voice as he brushed prickles from his head. "Well, he didn't hit us," said Stlk. "I think it was rather a lark. Here, where are you going?" "I'm going up to the house. If there is one," said McTurk, pushing through the hollies, I'm going to tell this Colonel Dabney." "Are you crazy? He will swear it served us jolly well right. He'll report us. It'll be a public licking. Oh, Turkey, don't be an ass. Think of us." "You fool," said Turkey, turning savagely. "Do you suppose I'm thinking of us? It's the keeper." "He's cracked," said Beetle, miserably, as they followed. Indeed, this was a new Turkey, a haughty, angular, nose-lifted Turkey, whom they accompanied through a shrubbery onto a lawn where a white-whiskered old gentleman with a clique was alternately pudding and blaspheming vigorously. "Are you Colonel Dabney?" McTurk began in his new creaky voice of his. I am," and his eyes travelled up and down the boy. What the devil do you want?" "You've been disturbing my pheasants. Don't attempt to deny it. You needn't laugh at it." McTurk's not too lovely features had twisted themselves into a horrible sneer at the word pheasant. "You've been bird nesting. You needn't hide your hat. I can see that you belong to the college. Don't attempt to deny it. You do. Your name and your number at once, sir. You want to speak to me, eh? You saw my notice boards. Mustn't have. Don't attempt to deny it. You did. Damnable. Oh, damnable." He choked with emotion. McTurk's heel tapped the lawn, and he strutted a little. Two sure signs that he was losing his temper. But why should he, the offender, be angry? Look here, sir. Do you shoot foxes? Because if you don't, your keeper does. We've seen him. Don't care what you call us, but it's an awful thing. It's the ruin of good feeling amongst neighbors. A man ought to say once and for all how he stands about preserving. It's worse than murder, because there's no legal remedy." McTurk was quoting confusedly from his father, while the old gentleman made noises in his throat. "Do you know who I am?" he gurgled at last, Stlk and Beetle quaking. "No, sorry, no, nor do I care if you belong to the castle itself. Answer me now, as one gentleman to another. Do ye shoot foxes, or do ye not?" And for 4 years before Stlk and Beetle had carefully kicked McTurk out of his Irish dialect. Assuredly he had gone mad, or taken sunstroke, and assuredly he would be slain, once by the old gentleman, and once by the head. A public licking for the three, and was the least they could expect. Yet, if their eyes and ears were to be trusted, the old gentleman had collapsed. It might be a lull before the storm, but I do not. He was still gurgling. Then you must sack your keeper. He is not fit to live in the same country with a God-fearing fox. And a vixen, too, at this time of year. Did ye come up on purpose to tell me this? Of course I did, ye silly man, with a stamp of the foot. Would ye not have done as much for me if you'd seen that happening on my land now? Forgotten was the college and the decency due to elders. McTurk was treading again the barren purple mountains of the rainy west coast, where in his holidays he was viceroy of 4,000 naked acres, only son of 300-year-old house, lord of a crazy fishing boat, and the idol of his father's shiftless tendency. It was the landed man speaking to his equal, deep calling to deep, and the old gentleman acknowledged the cry.